So welcome to the channel. So if you look on YouTube, you'll find lots of great videos about the technical aspects of implementing the Anypoint platform and an API development capability, and lots of other technical information on the other MuleSoft products. I would recommend looking at those from a technical perspective. But what you don't find so much of on YouTube is the strategic approach to implementing MuleSoft, and in particular the MuleSoft Anypoint platform. So this channel is looking to put that right and address some of the strategic questions that you may have when you're introducing the development and maintenance of an integration capability. In this first video, I'm going to be looking at the Centre for Enablement, and I promise to keep these videos to less than 20 minutes. So over the recent months, I've been writing a number of articles about the Centre for Enablement playbook, and I'll put a link to those below so you can go and read them in your own time. Hopefully you might find them useful. But one of the questions that crops up on a regular basis is, what is the Centre for Enablement? What is the role of the Centre for Enablement? And where does it sit in the organisation? Well, the Centre for Enablement playbook is one of 6 playbooks that are provided by the MuleSoft Catalyst methodology. So to answer the question of what is a Centre for Enablement, we're going to have to look at the MuleSoft Catalyst methodology. So join me as we start our journey through the Catalyst methodology by answering the question, what is a Centre for Enablement? So first of all, it's worth saying that the MuleSoft Catalyst methodology is available to all MuleSoft customers. You can find it online and you can access it quite easily. It's aimed at promoting customer success through looking at 3 key areas: business outcome, delivery of technology, and enablement at an organisational level. Like all methodologies, it's a collection of structured activities and assets which will tell you what to do, when to do it, and who should be involved. There are a lot of templates available in the MuleSoft Catalyst and a lot of good instructions, so it's worth having a look through the Catalyst. Now, like I said, there are 6 playbooks, and each playbook is made up of 4 phases: build for success, establish the foundation, build to scale, and measure the impact. I cover each of these phases for the Centre for Enablement playbook in my articles, so if you're interested at that detailed level, have a look at the articles that I've linked in the description. But the MuleSoft Catalyst is not a recipe for success. It's built on a lot of good experience, so it's definitely a good place to start. But I would say within your organisation, the first thing you need to do is to gain a complete understanding of your organisation, both from a technology, organisational and funding perspective. This will help you to decide on the initial structure of the Centre for Enablement, and so I would conduct what I would call an organisational integration capability exercise, and a deliverable from that would be the organisational integration capability map. This should include your technical platforms, your projects that support capability and technical skills, and that will then help to influence the training requirements that we'll talk about later on. Like I say, this exercise will help you form the initial structure for the Centre for Enablement, but the key word here is the initial structure. It will most likely change over time, and hopefully the reasons for this will become clear later on. So let's look at the Centre for Enablement, what it is, what it does, First from a MuleSoft Catalyst definition, and then given some of the experience and lessons learned from setting up a centre for enablement and operating that centre for enablement over the last few years. So the MuleSoft Catalyst states that from an organisational perspective, the Centre for Enablement is not a delivery team. Rather, it's a team that is responsible for defining standards, best practices that enable delivery teams to build, innovate and deliver assets in an agile, efficient and compliant way while supporting the technology and data that supports the integration capabilities of the organisation. The methodology also states that a key responsibility of the Centre for Enablement is to enable the organisation to create and consume reusable assets across the organisational units. In this definition of the Centre for Enablement, it is responsible for creating common integration components and driving reuse of these components to enable the delivery teams to reduce their delivery times through reuse and ensuring standards and best practices are adhered to through the provision of governance processes. So taking the definition directly from the Catalyst, the Centre for Enablement is responsible for providing a method for project teams to collaborate, driving efficiency through reuse and creation of common components, providing an approach for teams to innovate to drive reusability and efficiency, driving best practice and ensuring compliance to standards. So in order to do that, I see 4 roles for the Centre of Enablement within any organisation. So let's look at those 4 roles and how my definitions align with the Catalyst definitions. So the 4 roles that I would put down for the Centre for Enablement are defining and building foundational assets, definitely. Building, maintaining and executing governance, yes. Evangelisation and training. We need to analyse what is required and ensure that you have correct people with the correct level of certifications to do the work that's required. So let's explore each of these individually. Development of reusable assets, and by this I mean foundational APIs such as Common Error Handler, Common Audit Logger, etc. But also common development standards and common coding standards, and also common security standards. And if we've got standards, then we need some way of enforcing those standards. That leads me on to the second element, which is governance. So there's no point in having standards and best practices, as I say, if they're not policed. So as an example of this, we've worked quite closely with security teams who define security standards. They make the laws. And if you've got lawmakers, then you need a police force to enforce those laws. And the Centre for Enablement becomes that police force. But remember, laws can and do change. So you need to regularly review the laws that you are enforcing to make sure they remain relevant and cover any new requirements that come into your area of business. But you could then say, well, why do you actually need governance? Well, as I've said, governance enforces the law, but why do we need to enforce the law? The prime reason, in my view, is to optimise and protect the technical environment and the day-to-day operation of the capability. And in order to do this, the C3 needs to use those standards and processes to build a set of rules that they can enforce, both at design level and at coding level. At the design stage of API delivery, the rules will most likely be applied through a manual process. I spend a lot of time reading API designs. But at a coding level, there are a number of tools that can be used to automate the governance process in this respect. And I would strongly suggest that you look at those tools because automating that governance will save an incredible amount of time. And so we come on to evangelization. This has to be one of the key drivers for the Centre for Enablement in my view, as there's no point in providing the platform, developing all of the assets I've described above and operating governance if no one in the organisation is aware of the capabilities that are available, how to use them to shorten their delivery cycles, improve the quality of delivery, and to innovate to achieve outcomes that might not have been possible in the past. Evangelization can take many forms and be conducted through many channels. So I would strongly suggest that you engage with your company communication teams to work out the best way to communicate the information at both a technical level to a technical audience, but also importantly at a business level to the business audience. Also remember that when you're developing the capability, you will need MuleSoft certified staff in order to develop your common assets, your APIs, do your API integration design, and therefore training becomes a very important element to ensure that you do have the staff available with the correct certifications. So let's look at the structure of the Centre for Enablement. So going back to the Catalyst, the Centre for Enablement team is seen as not being a business delivery team, but in my view, at least at some point, it's going to be a technical delivery team, responsible for defining, developing, testing, and establishing the foundational assets, the APIs and API fragments. So I believe there are three options, if you like, for a Centre for Enablement structure. And remember, like I said before, they will probably change over time. So the three options in my view are to work with a completely centralised Centre for Enablement, and by that I mean the development team actually operates as part of the Centre for Enablement. The second option is to have a federated Centre for Enablement, so a core C3 team that manages development capabilities within other areas of the organisation, with that other area of the organisation still operating within their lines of business. Or the third element is a hybrid between the two, where you have a Centre for Enablement core team and developers that are still sitting within their lines of business but are actually reporting to the Centre for Enablement. So now you can start to see that the organisational structure for the Centre for Enablement may change over time as the C3 matures and the organisation matures with its integration capabilities. Once the foundational assets have been proven, then you could decide to remove the development capability from a centralised or hybrid structure and pass the responsibility for the maintenance and enhancements to a delivery team sitting outside of the Centre for Enablement. On the other hand, you may decide that after the foundational elements are built, that you want to keep a central development team close at hand for maintenance purposes. In the federated approach, development teams that are organised by the Centre for Enablement produce assets as part of their own project deliveries. In this scenario, assets, procedures and policies would need to be controlled by the C3E, as I said previously, to ensure that project teams are not doubling up on work or overlapping with work. The Centre for Enablement should always be looking for assets that can be harvested from anywhere in the business, so they can promote reusability, agility and innovation across the whole of the organisation. Reuse of quality assets is the key to shortening delivery life cycles, reducing project risk and improving quality of deliverables that in turn require less maintenance as the capability matures. Again, this is one of the reasons to understand the organisation and prepare to be flexible with the foundation and development of the Centre for Enablement. You may start the Centre for Enablement as a centralised team and then become federated, or start with federation under the central control of the C4E. The important thing is to understand your organisation and understand your business, and keep the benefits of the C4E always at the front of your thinking. So, to borrow a term from the Agile methodology, the Centre for Enablement is a team that is a servant leader. It leads in all aspects of integration capability through building foundational assets, including processes and procedures. It builds, maintains and enforces governance to maintain the integration capability. And it evangelises all that it has done and all that is available for use. Through all of this, the Centre for Enablement is still the servant of the business development teams. It listens and responds to requests from the business. It builds a symbiotic relationship that allows development, productization, and innovation. And it does this in short, iterative timescales in order to optimize the capabilities of the business. So you now see, hopefully, that the Centre for Enablement may take many forms within an organisation. I would give you 3 key pieces of advice. Look carefully at your organisation before forming that initial view of what the C4E constitution should be. Write the mission statement that I've described and get this approved and supported by high-level management in both IT and business teams. Be prepared to regularly review the Centre for Enablement, its structure and all of its assets. If it works, keep on doing it. If it doesn't work, then try something new. Oh, and lastly, I should just say, if you're not sure about where you start with this, there is always the option of using MuleSoft Professional Services. If you can do this, you will get a really good understanding and a really good grounding for implementing MuleSoft within your organisation. They have done this before, and the result of them doing it is the MuleSoft Catalyst methodology. So I hope this has helped. So if you've got any questions, put them in the comments below and I'll try and get round to answer them as soon as I can. If you found the contents useful, then please consider giving the video a like. And if you want to be notified when the next videos are published, then please subscribe to the channel. And remember, you can always unsubscribe if you find that it's not useful to you in the future. So next time, I'll be looking at the difference between a Centre for Enablement and a Centre for Excellence. See you then.